We open on a shot of a military helicopter flying in the sky. There's radio chatter of soldiers talking about a captured hedgehog, and after a bit of a tussle, Sonic the Hedgehog emerges from the helicopter. He makes a quippy one-liner about there being no food or movies on this flight, rips a piece of the plane wing off, and then uses that as a snowboard as he jumps off the helicopter and plummets down to the city below. A lot of people will tell you that the opening to Sonic Adventure 2 is pretty great, and for good reason, because this opening is very effective in doing all of the things that it needs to do. Primarily, to me, the thing that this opening conveys is that this is going to be a very different Sonic story than anything we've seen up to this point. But before we start talking about the actual story of Sonic Adventure 2, I want to quickly touch on the storytelling of the game, because that has improved substantially over Sonic Adventure 1. Now we have proper, unique animations for all of the cutscenes with actual pacing and directing. There's less cutscenes, but they're not as long, while at the same time having more things happen in the cutscenes, vastly improving the pacing of the game and the story thanks to that. I don't have an issue with the way that the story is told. Like, the cutscenes still have their problems. They're still pretty primitive, the animation is still not great, and there's a lot of issues here and there. But I can actually pay attention to the story and be engaged in what's happening this time around. However, there are still some pretty significant issues with the storytelling as well. The biggest one, I would say, is the pacing. While I said it's a good thing that the pacing has been increased now, it's actually kind of been increased a bit too much. The story of this game is way too fast-paced. Take this scene here, for example, where Rouge is on the Space Colony Ark, hacking into the computer to figure out some stuff about Project Shadow, until the sensors detect the heroes show up, and so Rouge decides to take advantage of that situation. But look at how quickly we go from that first plot point to the second one, Rouge on her computer getting data, and then her reacting to the heroes showing up. In the actual cutscene, look at how quickly that change happens. It's basically instantaneous. We go right from one story beat immediately to the next, and this is a constant problem that happens throughout all of Sonic Adventure 2, of just going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, immediately without giving anything time to breathe. This results in the story coming at the audience way too quickly, and I think it's one of the main reasons that people call the story of Sonic Adventure 2 confusing and convoluted, because they're constantly throwing so much information at you. It's very easy to miss story details and not know exactly what's going on. But that's not the only issue that the storytelling of Sonic Adventure 2 has. There is a much bigger one, probably the biggest issue that the entire game's story has overall, which is the split story of the hero side and the dark side. In Sonic Adventure 1, it was 7 separate stories that were tied together, and so it made sense to see it from all those different perspectives, because they were each telling their own different unique stories with their own beginning, middle, and end. That is not how Sonic Adventure 2's story works. When you really look at it and you examine the scenes and how they're constructed, how they're directed, how cutscenes pace into each other, and when you lay out the story, it actually becomes very apparent to me that this game's story was not written with the intention of being broken up into 2 halves. It is very clear that this was one story written from the beginning to the end linearly, and then it was split into 2 pieces, basically divvied up amongst the good guys and bad guys, and this results in many, many issues when you actually play through Sonic Adventure 2 doing one of the 2 sides of the story. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's actually a mod that someone created for Sonic Adventure 2 on PC where it gets rid of these 2 stories, the hero story and the dark story, and instead combines the 2 campaigns into a singular story played in a linear fashion where you jump back and forth across all 6 characters. And I gotta say, playing through the game with this mod, holy shit, the story is so vastly superior when you just go through it the way it was actually intended to be gone through. Everything makes so much more sense, everything works better, it's so much easier to understand what's happening, and there is such better use of things like setups and payoffs that make the story feel way more satisfying So actually, for this video, I'm not going to be talking about the story of Sonic Adventure 2 as it exists by default in the game. I'm going to be talking about the story of Sonic Adventure 2 from the perspective of using this mod, using the version of the story as it was written, as it was intended. Rather than having this single story broken in two pieces, let's look at the story when it is whole and when it is working the way it is supposed to. So, starting from the actual beginning of the story, we actually begin on Dr. Eggman. He is raiding a top-secret military base in search of some sort of top-secret government research project that he plans to take for himself. And not only is this just some government research project, it was created by Eggman's grandfather. And right off the bat, we already have something that feels a little odd for Sonic stories in comparison to the previous games, which is where we need to talk about the writer of Sonic Adventure 2, because this was the first Sonic game written by Shiro Maekawa, and he admittedly has said that he did not like the Sonic series the way it was before, and he deliberately made an attempt to change the way that Sonic is done for his stories and in Sonic Adventure 2, and you can see that right off the bat with how this story begins. I mean, the government, the military, that has never been a thing in the Sonic universe before, but suddenly we have secret government facilities and projects and weapons and stuff. I mean, having a military itself just feels kind of odd in comparison to all the previous games, doesn't it? Whatever happened to, Eggman and his army of cartoony, animal-looking robots and, going to mystical islands to hunt for the Chaos Emeralds? Like, no. This is not that kind of story. We're doing something very different here. And it's not just the tone that's been changed, but even the characters have been slightly rewritten. I mean, not too different, they're still mostly the same, but Sonic definitely has a couple more extra traits from the American version of Sonic, actually. He's got a couple of extra quippy one-liners, and he's a bit more sarcastic in this game than he's ever been before. And this is also where we introduce the whole thing of Knuckles being a treasure hunter, which just comes completely out of nowhere. That's never been established in any of the previous games. He's just suddenly, out of nowhere, for no reason, a world-renowned treasure hunter, which doesn't even make sense for his character because he never leaves Angel Island. So I think stuff like that is a product of Maekawa wanting to change up the series a little bit. And I actually want to touch on the military and why they exist in this story, because if you think about it from a writing perspective, it's pretty easy to see how things ended up the way that they did. Because for this game, they wanted to have Eggman as a playable character, right? So what's Eggman's enemy faction going to be? It's obviously not going to be Eggman robots. You gotta have him fight something else. But what's he gonna do? Fucking kill people or kill animal characters? Obviously not, so he's gotta fight another robot faction of some kind. And so we introduce the human military as a faction for Eggman to fight. And I actually don't hate the inclusion of this kind of thing, because one of the criticisms I had for Sonic Adventure 1's story is that the humans basically were background elements. They weren't even characters, they were nothing. However, here, this time around, we actually do have the humans and the military involved in a good chunk of the story, which actually makes it feel like this is a world populated by people. I also really like how the opening cutscene does a really good job of establishing that even though this is the human military, the government, they're no match for Eggman. He's a genius. He's able to create machines that will outclass anything they could make, and he's just plowing through this military base, and there's nothing they can do to stop him. He basically sees them as a joke. And that does a really good job of establishing that Eggman is a serious threat. In all the previous games, he's been a little silly, a little cartoony. We've never had anything to compare him against other than Sonic, who's always been defeating him. But this shows that for the regular world, Eggman, he can basically do whatever he wants, and no one can get in his way. This is the kind of thing I was talking about when I said Sonic Adventure 2 does a much better job with telling its story, because you just get this feeling with the way that the cutscene is directed and done. Although one thing that's really stupid, I have to say, is the name of the military, because the military in this game is called a GUN, or the Guardian Units of Nations, aka GUN. That's such a fucking ridiculous, stupid acronym for a military. I fucking love it. One detail I like about Gun's robots is that, how Eggman's robots are powered by animals that he captures and shoves inside them? Well, Gun, obviously being the government, isn't going to do something that evil, and their robots are actually powered by, like, these artificial chaos drives that, are manifestations of chaos energy. So that's just a nice little thing, that Eggman's robots are powered by animals, and Gun's robots are powered more humanely. Anyway, after Eggman has blasted his way through the military base, he gets to the top-secret research project that he was looking for, and by entering the password Maria into the console, he's able to get access and release the project. And after unlocking it, he finds a hedgehog, one that apparently resembles Sonic quite a bit. And this mysterious hedgehog introduces himself as Shadow, and he pledges allegiance to Eggman as thanks for releasing him from his cryostasis right when a Gun robot shows up to apprehend them. And Shadow, wanting to show off his power to his new master, disposes of the Gun robot like it's nothing. After that, Shadow tells Eggman to bring Chaos Emeralds to the Space Colony Ark, whatever that is. Ooh, mysterious. And then he wanders off on his own. Ooh, what's going on? See, to me, this works very well as a prologue to the story. It's very common in stories like this that you start the prologue foreshadowing some mysterious new threat. And so having Eggman raid the military base and awaken Shadow, and now it's like, ooh, who's this character? It really feels like the way this story was supposed to begin. Now we have a little bit more context for what's going on here. Sonic is being pursued by the military because they think that he's Shadow, who has escaped from their research facility, and they're trying to get him back. Makes perfect sense now, but Sonic has no idea what's going on in this instance. Meanwhile, Eggman returns to his base in a pyramid, and he checks the news to find that, what? Shadow has apparently stolen a Chaos Emerald and is running around on the loose in the same city that Sonic is in. And the news has mistakenly labeled Shadow as Sonic. And this is where I want to talk about that story element, because this is something that a lot of people have a lot of issues with, and a lot of people misunderstand what's going on here. Because you always hear people saying, how could anyone possibly mistake Shadow for Sonic? Like, these two look nothing alike. Come on now, this is ridiculous. How am I supposed to buy into this? What the fuck is going on? This is stupid and doesn't make any sense. You see, because Shadow is a secret government research project, as well as some other story elements that we'll get to later, there's actually a good chance that Gun is trying to cover up the existence of Shadow, so they're pinning it on Sonic. They fed the news that false information, that Sonic is the one, that escaped from the research facility, and he's the one that stole the Chaos Emerald, and, they're just, following what they're told to by the military. Except no. That's not what's happening here. That's something that a lot of fans like to pretend is what's going on here. Like, that's purely a fan theory. There is absolutely nothing in the game to actually support that being the case in what's going on here. And looking at the story, I really don't think that's the case at all. I really do genuinely think that the story is simply just that people think Shadow and Sonic look the same, including themselves. There is multiple lines of dialogue, not just from Gun, but from many characters where they mistake Shadow for Sonic or compare the two as being very similar. Eggman himself, when he first sees Shadow, he thinks he's Sonic. Same thing with Amy when she runs into Shadow, she thinks it's Sonic. And even Sonic himself, when you look at some of his level recaps for the story, he says that Shadow looks exactly like him. And later on in the story, Shadow has a line where he says that there's more to Sonic than just looking like him. There's even cut lines of dialogue that was originally going to be in the game where Shadow says something along the lines of, "You really do look like me. It's like looking into a mirror. You're like my shadow." So it's very clear to me that the intention of the story is just that Sonic and Shadow look similar, and that makes a whole lot more sense when you consider the fact that most likely the story was written before Shadow's design was finalized. If you look at early concept art of Shadow, he basically was just evil Sonic. He was just a recolor, essentially. Like, he looked a lot like Sonic before getting to his final design, where he's a little bit different. So the story was just written with the idea of an evil Sonic running around, and so everybody thinks that they look the same. And really, I'm fine with that. I'm not bothered by that at all. Like, you just gotta give a little suspension of disbelief. Okay, everyone thinks they look the same. Sure, whatever. I'll buy into that. It really doesn't bother me. Anyway, we cut to Shadow after he's stolen the Chaos Emeralds, and Gun is after him as well. and Shadow begins to experience very broken flashbacks of something that happened in his past. The particularly important thing to pay attention to in this scene is that this girl, Maria, asks Shadow to do something for her in her place, but there's a blank space where we don't actually hear what she says until we cut to Shadow back in the present, where he says that he will fulfill what Maria asked him to do and get revenge. Ooh, the mystery continues. Cut back to Sonic, who's still running from the military, and he runs into the exact same model of gun robot that Shadow fought earlier in the story. And he's able to take it out just as easily as Shadow does. And this, I think, is actually a really good detail that a lot of people can end up glossing over, is the fact that Sonic and Shadow fight the same type of robot. I feel like this is an intentional moment to show the similarity between Sonic and Shadow. You know, Shadow does that to show off Eggman how powerful he is. Look at what I can do. I can destroy this robot easily. And then Sonic is able to do the exact same thing. It's meant to be like a parallel between the two characters. What Shadow can do, Sonic can also do, and that will be an important recurring thing throughout the entirety of the story. And the way that it makes Sonic and Shadow feel like parallels, it also gives this feeling for Eggman that he now has his own Sonic working for him. You know, Sonic has always been the thing that's defeated him in the past. No matter what he's tried to do, he's just not been able to stop Sonic. But now he has his own Sonic working for him. Now he finally has something that can truly go toe-to-toe with Sonic, possibly giving him the opportunity to finally realize his plans for world domination. After Sonic defeats the gun robot, Sonic and Shadow run into each other, and we get the two's first encounter. This is where Sonic realizes that the military isn't actually after him, they're after Shadow, and they're just mistaking Sonic for Shadow. So of course he's not okay with this, because this guy, that he has no idea who he is dragging Sonic's name through the mud. He's obviously not having any of that, so he demands answers from Shadow, but Shadow shows off that he's more than just a hedgehog, very similar to Sonic. Shadow introduces us to the concept of chaos control, that he himself can manipulate the power of a Chaos Emerald to warp space and time to do various different things. This puts Shadow on a pedestal above Sonic, which is classic rival writing for many different stories. You'll have your main two characters, and they clash multiple times throughout the story, and usually in the first clash, the villain, the rival character, will end up, topping the hero, as they are above the hero's current level at the beginning of the story. And that's exactly what this is here. This is to show that Shadow is not just a copy of Sonic, he's something more than that. And for the story of the Sonic series, this introduces something that has never existed before, which is something that Sonic cannot handle, something that has actually topped Sonic, something that has actually beaten him in a way, something that he was not able to deal with the first time he encountered it. Nothing has ever shown up Sonic before. This is a threat unlike anything Sonic has ever encountered. And to me, this kind of justifies Shadow's existence as a character, because let's be honest, at the end of the day, he's just another rival for Sonic, and you have to ask yourself, did Sonic really need another rival? Especially considering the ones he's already had. Because, you had Knuckles, who was a rival in a bit of a different way, because he wasn't, the same thing as Sonic. Knuckles was kind of like Sonic's opposite. But then you had Metal Sonic, who's basically the exact same thing that Shadow is, a character that is very similar to Sonic with the same abilities. But you couldn't really get across this same idea if you used Metal Sonic, because the whole point is that this is a much greater threat than anything Sonic has faced previously. I mean, I guess you could have just said that Metal Sonic got an upgrade, and that could effectively do the same thing. But at the same time, I think they wanted to have, another organic character to be Sonic's rival, someone that wasn't, an Eggman robot, but was something even more similar to Sonic than Metal was. I mean, essentially, Shadow is Sonic's Vegeta, the character that shows up and is just like him, but is even stronger. And Shadow once again uses Chaos Control to teleport away, and distracted by the flash of light, Sonic once again gets apprehended by Gun. And now we go to the side story of the game, which is Knuckles, which... honestly, I'm going to just say this right now. Knuckles is completely fucking pointless in this game's story. He could literally not be here, and it would make almost no difference. But whatever, we're just going to go with it. It's kind of ironic, actually, that the Sonic Adventure games are so story-focused, yet Knuckles is here not for story reasons, but mainly just because they wanted to bring back his treasure hunting gameplay, and so they had to shove him into the story, even though he really has no reason to be here. So for Knuckles' story, we come in on him having an encounter with this new character, Rouge the Bat, introduced into the story. And they are fighting over the Master Emerald, because obviously Knuckles is guarding it, and Rouge is a big fan of jewels. She's a master treasure hunter and a thief. And the Master Emerald's a big shiny gem, and she wants it. And Rouge is a very, arrogant character who thinks very highly of herself, so she's like, well, of course that gem is mine, because it's a pretty gem, and I want it. So give it to me. And Knuckles is like, excuse me? No. And so they end up butting heads, and this is kind of a thing with Sonic Adventure 2, is the rivalries. Sonic and Shadow, Tails and Eggman, and Knuckles and Rouge. They both want the Master Emerald, and they are both extremely stubborn characters that are not going to let the other one have their way, which makes for some fun banter between the two of them until Dr. Eggman shows up, and he's like, hey, the Master Emerald, I'll take that. And Knuckles is like, nah, and he breaks the Master Emerald, meaning he's gonna have to once again collect those pieces. And Rouge is just pissed off, because she's like, you broke my gem! And he's like, that's not fucking yours, it's mine! These two characters have a lot of really good chemistry. They're very fun together. I really like the relationship between Knuckles and Rouge. It is a bit unfortunate that this is essentially just the exact same premise as it was in Sonic Adventure 1. The Master Emerald breaks into pieces and Knuckles needs to collect them again. But, they were bringing back that gameplay, so what else are you gonna do, really? Oh, and by the way, in case anybody is confused, because this location is obviously not the altar of the Master Emerald that's on Angel Island, as we saw in Sonic Adventure 1, or even 3 of Knuckles for that matter. So you're like, what the fuck, what's going on? Is this Angel Island? Where are they? I don't understand. Did Angel Island fall out of the sky? I don't know. The details aren't really there. What's going on? Well, this is where we get to another one of Sonic Adventure 2's major storytelling problems, which is that there are many important story details that are not actually in the cutscenes of the game, and in some instances just not in the game at all. Because in this instance, if you actually look at Knuckles' recap for his first level, he explains that Rouge stole the Master Emerald, and he caught up with her, and so that's where we catch up with these two. Would have been nice if that sort of detail was actually in the story, but honestly, that is one of the least egregious issues that we're going to be running into. So, whatever. At least it's in the game at all. And while we're here, I want to talk about Rouge, because I think it's easy for a lot of people to go, why the fuck is Rouge the way that she is? Why on earth did they make, a sexy Sonic character? Isn't this fucking supposed to be a franchise for kids? What the hell are you doing? But actually, if you think about it, I think that Rouge's characterization makes a whole lot of sense and works really well, because, first of all, you have to consider that in Japan, it's not that crazy to have sexual stuff in children's stuff, especially stuff geared towards boys, That's just how it is over there. And secondly, you gotta think about how Rouge was created and why she was created. Because this whole game, it's about rivalries, right? They introduced Shadow into the game, and he is Sonic's rival. And so they wanted to give Knuckles a rival. So who's another character that we could make that would have the same gameplay as Knuckles, but would, butt heads with him character-wise? If you're going to make a character that's going to be Knuckles' rival, then in as many ways as possible, that character should be his opposite, or be a character that can really get under his skin, right? And we know from Knuckles' early character bios that he is very bad with girls, and that just makes sense when you think about his character. He's very rough, he's very aggressive, he's very brutish. It makes very much sense that he wouldn't be very, delicate with the ladies and not know how to handle them very well. So then when you make Rouge, a pretty lady type, then she can factor into that, but then also use her feminine wiles to kind of, confuse Knuckles emotionally, because he's kind of got that, innocent young vibe to him, where he doesn't really know how to handle she's all pretty and stuff, but I also am angry at her, and there's like a conflict of emotions going on there that works very well for Knuckles. And on top of that, you make Rouge just as stubborn and hard-headed as Knuckles is, so when he is very rough with her, she's not gonna fucking take that, and she throws it right back at him. It just creates such a wonderful dynamic between these two characters. I honestly would say I cannot possibly imagine a better rival character for Knuckles. I mean, hell, even the way Rouge fights is intentionally supposed to contrast with Knuckles, because Knuckles is obviously all about punching, and for Rouge, all of her attacks are done with kicks. Anyway, back to the story. Knuckles and Rouge do some searching to collect pieces of the broken Master Emerald. But remember, when Eggman was flying away after, the Master Emerald broke, he was flying over to his base, the pyramid, and Rouge got a glimpse at that. She was watching Eggman fly away. And there's a reason for that, because the next thing we see is Rouge breaking into Eggman's base and speaking on a radio to someone, reporting about something that she's up to. So there's more to Rouge than her just being a greedy treasure hunter. Rouge manages to infiltrate Eggman's base, and there she gets to a console with a teleporter that's set to go to Ark, where Rouge explains to herself, but basically us, the audience, that the Ark is some space colony that was shut down over 50 years ago. Ooh, actually introducing to us what the fuck the Ark is, almost like this is how the story was supposed to go, instead of being broken into two pieces, where you have no fucking idea what the Ark is until 60% through the story. But anyway, Rouge is curious what Eggman is doing up on the Ark, so of course she teleports up after him. Here we catch up with Eggman, who has reached the control room of the space colony where Shadow has been waiting for him. Shadow introduces Eggman to one of his grandfather, Professor Gerald's creations, the Eclipse Cannon, a weapon powered by Chaos Emeralds that has enough power to destroy an entire planet. And obviously Eggman likes the idea of this, as he can use this cannon to threaten the world to submit to him and finally take over. And this is where Rouge introduces herself to Eggman and Shadow, as she was eavesdropping on their conversation the whole time. And she basically makes a whole spiel about how these two aren't going to be able to collect the Chaos Emeralds on their own at all because they're a bunch of bumbling buffoons. And how she is a professional treasure hunter and she knows how to collect Chaos Emeralds. So she suggests they form a partnership and work together to collect the Chaos Emeralds. And she makes this, really fucking stupid deal where she wants Eggman's Emerald Radar. That's how he found the Master Emerald in the first place. And, I guess it kind of makes sense for Rouge's character that she's like, ooh, an Emerald Radar, I can use that to find treasure. But, it's a really weak argument for, sneaking into Eggman's base, going up to the Ark, following them, shouldn't Eggman be, way fucking more suspicious of her than this? That she's just like, hey, let me work with you, with, no real benefit to her other than some radar? It's very weak. But I don't really have that much of an issue with Eggman buying into this, because Rouge flashes a Chaos Emerald showing that she already knows what she's doing. And, Eggman has already been shown to not be the most forward-thinking person in the world, so he's like, hey, she's got a Chaos Emerald. She seems to know what she's talking about. And even Shadow nods his head, and he's like, yeah, we should do it. So, as it turns out, Rouge was totally right. These two are bumbling buffoons, and they let her team up with them. And that's kind of the end of the first act of the story. Surprisingly, Sonic Adventure 2 actually has, a plot structure to it, with multiple acts where the story goes through changes and different things happen. In Sonic Adventure 1, it was just kind of random crap happening. But here, we had a prologue, and we have the first act, introducing the threat, introducing Sonic to Shadow, establishing what's going on. This is now where we get to what I would call the second act of the story, Prison Island. So Prison Island is the facility where Shadow is being held, and Eggman and co. return to this island because, according to Rouge's intel, the military is in possession of 3 Chaos Emeralds. So, of course, our bad guys go there to get their hands on those Chaos Emeralds. And, they're formulating their plan. Eggman's going to cause a distraction, Shadow's going to set up a bomb to destroy the island so that way they can't be pursued on their escape, and Rouge will get the Chaos Emeralds. And at first the plan is going hunky-dory until Amy shows up mistaking Shadow for Sonic. And so Eggman is like, oh god, alright, let me deal with this, you two just get back to work. And here is where we are introduced to Tails in the story, who is flying to Prison Island to save Sonic, because not only is this the island where Shadow is being held, and where they're keeping Chaos Emeralds, but Sonic is also being held captive here, so that's very convenient, but it really doesn't bother me. You know, coincidences like that are not that egregious as far as storytelling goes, so, whatever, I'm not bothered by it. Anyway, as Tails is flying into Prison Island, he sees Amy in danger with Eggman approaching her. Tails and Eggman end up fighting, and I think Tails ends up beating Eggman, because he does like the salty, like, you didn't win, next time I'm gonna fucking beat your ass, later loser. And then Tails is like, Amy, what the fuck are you doing here? This is super dangerous. And of course Amy is like, I'm here to save Sonic, of course. And I actually quite like this for Amy's character, because, you know, after her arc in Sonic Adventure 1, she doesn't feel like the useless little girl anymore that she used to be. She feels like, yeah, I can do things too now. I can be a hero. I can save Sonic. But, you know, of course, at the end of the day, she's still just Amy, so Tails is the one that actually ends up taking the reins on this mission, blasting through the gun facility in order to get to Sonic's cell. But Amy is the one that manages to get the key card to break Sonic out. And a nice little character detail I like here is that Sonic is, like, visibly upset, which is something that we've never seen out of him before. You know, as I said before, Sonic has never lost to anybody before. He's never been shown up before. And suddenly now someone shows up that not only looks like him, but is as capable as him, and is able to do this chaos control thing, putting him on a whole other level than Sonic. And Sonic is, like, really visibly frustrated by that. Like, the way he behaves, the way he's so anxious in his cell, you know, doing his stretches and stuff. You can tell that he really just wants to get back out there and give Shadow what for. That's a nice character detail, and it's a good thing for Sonic to go through as a character, as he's never really had much of anything going on character-wise before. But now that he's got a true rival, someone that is one-on-one the same as him, he actually gets a little bit pissed for once. And after some attempts at flirting, Amy lets Sonic out of his cell, and then he immediately gets out of there because he's got to go find Shadow, who, through Amy, he learns that Shadow is also on this island with Eggman. And Amy also remarks about the weird scribblings on the walls in Sonic's cell. Seems like kind of a random and pointless detail, or is it? Meanwhile, Shadow sets the bombs on the island, and Rouge collects the Chaos Emeralds. However, there's a little bit of a snag in the plan, as Rouge ends up getting cornered by some security robots and is unable to make her escape. She ends up getting locked in a room with no way out, and the timer on those bombs is going. So she radios to the others for some help, and Shadow, hearing this, it reminds him of something. You know, a girl desperately in need of help in a dire situation. It once again reminds him of Maria. Shadow goes to rescue Rouge, but he ends up running into Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's like, Jesus fucking Christ, this is not the time to be running into him. And Sonic is like, you motherfucker, then not this time, bro, let's fucking go, rematch time, I got you this time, asshole. And of course, everybody loves the banter here between Sonic and Shadow, and I really do as well, because you really get a sense of Sonic and Shadow's relationship with each other. You know, Sonic is obviously pissed that Shadow was able to one-up him, and, you know, it's gotten him into all this trouble, so he really wants to give it to this guy. But Shadow, on the other hand, one, he's fucking busy with a very desperate time limit, but two, Shadow also has this air of, like, superiority that he feels. You know, he refers to himself as the ultimate life form. You know, he is some government research military project. He is an almighty, all-powerful being, and this is just some fucking hedgehog that thinks that he can actually take on Shadow. Like, come on now, get out of my way. You're just a nuisance. You're just a disturbance. You know, that's how Shadow acts. He doesn't respect Sonic. He doesn't see them as equals. He just sees Sonic as an obstacle getting in his way. And the two fight, but in classic rival fashion. On their second fight, things are a little bit more evenly matched, but it's more so that the fight gets cut short before a winner can be determined, because Eggman comes up on the radio and is like, Shadow, the island is about to explode. What the fuck are you doing? Get Rouge and get out of there. And Sonic is like, blows up! And Shadow gets out of there to go save Rouge, and Sonic is like, I also have to do the same, gotta find Amy and Tails, and get the fuck off this island on the tornado. And that's exactly what everybody does. Shadow manages to save Rouge with Chaos Control, and Sonic and friends manage to escape the exploding island. And, like, I know the gun is made up of, like, a lot of robots, but they also do clearly have, like, human military personnel and soldiers. Like, you can see, like, pilots in their vehicles and stuff. So, like, did Eggman just, like, kill a whole bunch of people? Like, what the fuck? That's crazy. I mean, I guess it's not that crazy considering the amount of fucking death that was at the end of Sonic Adventure 1. But, you know, they don't show anything, so you can say everybody was evacuated, you know, whatever. Anyway, that brings to a close what I would call Act 2 of the story of Sonic Adventure 2, the Prison Island arc. And now, as once again another breather and giving us a chance for a time skip, we cut back to Knuckles, who is still collecting pieces of the Master Emerald because he doesn't need to be in this story and he is entirely pointless. Beginning Act 3 of the story, we start on another flashback of Shadow and Maria on the Space Colony arc. And, you know, it's not like the other ones where things are all desperate and scary and, ooh, what's going on? Things are actually very calm now. This is a different memory where Shadow is just reminiscing of a time where he spoke with Maria. And they're talking about how Shadow feels like he doesn't understand his purpose in life. You know, he talks about how Professor Gerald, you know, he says that he wants to make the world a better place through the power of science. He wants to help humanity, and that's his purpose in life. And hearing the professor say that, it just got Shadow thinking that he doesn't really know what his purpose is. Why does he exist? Why does he live? Why was he created? Shadow just doesn't have that reason for living. And he thinks maybe if he goes down to Earth, then perhaps he'll be able to figure it out. Shadow is pulled out of his flashback when Rouge is like, hey, thanks for saving me. And Shadow's like, I didn't save you, I was after the Chaos Emeralds. And she's like, yeah, whatever you say, bro. And then Eggman comes in and he's like, alright, we're ready to begin. And if you haven't been keeping track, Eggman had a Chaos Emerald at the beginning of the story. There's the one Shadow stole from the bank. Rouge had one that she showed Eggman and Shadow when she joined their team. And they just stole 3 from Gun. So that means that the bad guys have 6 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which Rouge questions if that's enough to fire the Eclipse cannon. You know, it's not at full power. But Shadow's like, that's plenty. This is just going to be a demonstration to show what the Eclipse Cannon is capable of, and, you know, make the world fear them. And so we get this CGI cutscene where Eggman appears on every goddamn TV all over the world all at once, and he basically says, like, I'm Dr. Eggman, and I'm going to take over the world. Everybody submit to me, and if you don't, this is what's going to happen to you. And then the Space Colony arc breaks open its cover to reveal that Gerald was just as much of an egoist as Eggman is, because he also makes all of his shit in the shape of his own face. And they fire the Eclipse Cannon at the moon, destroying half of it and showing that they mean fucking business. And this is the kind of thing I was talking about when I said that this is a very different type of Sonic story than what was done before. Like, the stakes are so much higher, there's a lot more going on, and the tone of things, like, it's a lot more serious, a lot more action-packed, a lot more desperate. You know, there's this mysterious elements of what's going on with Shadow and Rouge. Like, this is definitely a significant change from, you know, the lighthearted, fun, adventurous, and kind of mystical stories that were done previously in all the other Sonic games. But in a way, I think that this is like the most obvious and natural thing to do after all the previous games. Because think about it, what have all the Sonic stories been about up to this point? You know, obviously, just very simple, Eggman wants the Chaos Emeralds to take over the world. But there are also these, like, magical and mystical elements in lots of the different games. Like, obviously, you have the Chaos Emeralds themselves. But then, you know, South Island is an island that would magically move around on the ocean. Angel Island floats in the sky with the Master Emerald and some ancient prophecy. Sonic CD had the little planet that would mysteriously appear and disappear over Never Lake, and it had the time stones and all that. And Sonic Adventure was doing more of that, you know, prophecy stuff with the ancient Echidna tribe and, you know, chaos and all this magical, mystical stuff. And so after Sonic Adventure, now that we have, like, you know, concluded that initial story arc from the Sonic games of, like, the ancient civilization that misused the Chaos Emeralds and were wiped out, Sonic Adventure let us see that story and finally experience it. It, you know, ended the illusions to what was going on long ago and let us finally know what it was. And so at that point, that initial story that was set up in the early Sonic games was done. There was nowhere left to go with that. So the thing you have to do at that point is start a new story and go in a bit of a new direction. And so after like 5 games in a row of mystical, magical stuff, it makes sense to go in a more scientific direction with things, doesn't it? Because there's 2 major elements to the Sonic series. You know, you have Sonic, who kind of represents, nature and what's good and magical about the world. And then you have Eggman, the representative of humanity and technology and things like that. So after so many games of magic and nature, we now shift to a more human-focused, science-focused story, as a bit of a change. I think that makes a lot of sense and is a very natural choice for this game's story. The tone shift to make things a bit more shonen-y and a bit more action-y, that was just Shiro Maekawa wanting to make the story feel a bit more to his liking. So anyway, back to the story. Eggman has blown up half the moon and threatened the entire world of, submit to me, you have 24 hours before I fucking shoot the eclipse cannon at the Earth and fucking kill everyone. And, of course, the good guys see that, and so, of course, they're immediately like, we gotta do something about this and put a stop to Eggman. And honestly, here is where I'm just going to skip ahead, because essentially, the entire middle of this game's story is filler that only serves to explain how the heroes get to the Space Colony Ark, and you really don't need almost any of it. It doesn't really matter how they get to the Ark, all that matters is that they do. So all these plot points that occur of having to find Eggman, and we have to, track down the president, which is also a weird thing to put in a Sonic story. And then the bad guys start tracking the good guys as they make their way to Eggman's pyramid base, and there's a showdown there. None of this actually matters. You could just as easily have the story from here had been the good guys saw the Ark fire the laser at the moon, so they know where Eggman is on the space colony, and Tails could have just had a rocket pre-built that they just take up to it, and there you go. Same thing plot-wise, but we save a bunch of time and we don't have a bunch of essentially pointless scenes. This is basically all here just to justify more levels. There are a couple of important plot details that happen here, so I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes versions of these things. So Tails has the last Chaos Emerald, and the bad guys obviously want to get that Chaos Emerald from him, and they know that he has it. Which also, by the way, side note, whatever happened to, having to go into special stages to get the Chaos Emeralds? Obviously that's not a part of this game, but, story and lore-wise, now the Chaos Emeralds are basically just treated like Dragon Balls or something, where after they're used up, I guess they just spread around the world and random people just find them. That's how they've been treated in Adventure 1 and now Adventure 2 also. Which you could argue is kind of a retcon from how it was in the classic games, sort of. Knuckles runs into the good guys and teams up with them once he hears that Rouge is hanging out with Eggman, since obviously she has pieces of the Master Emerald that he needs. And lastly, we learn that Rouge is a government agent, and she has been assigned by the President to investigate Project Shadow and whether or not Shadow the Hedgehog is truly the ultimate life form. And obviously she's only working with Eggman so she can find that information out. Though Rouge working for the government kind of creates a little bit of more issues because, I know she's working undercover and all, but would a government agent actually be okay with blowing up Prison Island and half the moon? Why did she go along with that? That seems fucked up. And that's pretty much it. Nothing else here is very important. And honestly, that's almost unfortunate because this is where the story gets, really, really bad in terms of, writing. There are many, many issues in terms of plot consistency, character motivations, characters doing things that are stupid and don't make any sense, the scenarios that enable the story to continue being really bizarre and extremely convenient to, an almost nonsensical degree. There are a number of things here that just don't really make any sense, but I'm just going to skip over all of it because this entire point of the story doesn't even matter anyway, so who cares? However, there is one thing that I do need to talk about, as it is pretty egregious in my opinion. Why exactly does Eggman want the 7th Chaos Emerald? For what reason? To give the Eclipse Cannon its full power, you say? Why? For why? What does the Eclipse Cannon being at full power do that it can't already do with 6 Chaos Emeralds? Did you fucking see what that did to the moon? If you shot that at the Earth, that would be a fucking apocalyptic extinction level event that would kill everyone on the planet. Does the Eclipse cannon really need to be powerful enough to shatter the entire Earth and completely destroy it? Isn't killing everyone enough to function as a threat to rule the world? Their argument for this is that, oh, well, with only 6 emeralds, the cannon takes too long to charge. It'll take, 24 hours. That's why Eggman says that in 24 hours, he's going to fire the cannon at the Earth again. Who fucking cares if it's going to take 24 hours to charge the Eclipse cannon? What does that even matter? We've already established in this story that everyone other than Sonic is helpless against Eggman, so it's not like, oh, he's charging the cannon, let's try to stop him. The normal humans aren't able to do that, so it doesn't matter how long it would take for the cannon to charge, it still works as a viable threat. So there's really no reason for Eggman to want the 7th Chaos Emerald. He's perfectly capable of threatening the world and taking over with 6. He just wants all 7 for no reason. This is the first major logical loophole that we're gonna run into in this story, and it's not going to be the last. But now, picking up on the story again, Sonic and friends manage to get in one of Eggman's rockets in his pyramid base, which I'm a little bothered by the fact that it's just like a normal-ass, like, NASA-looking rocket. Like, shouldn't this at least have Eggman's color scheme on it or something? Really, it's just a spectacle thing. It's just to be, like, this cool moment of, like, Sonic is going to space. We're going to another level. This story is going bigger than any other Sonic story has up to this point. I mean, Sonic 2 went into space a little bit, but this is a lot more than that. We are going to be spending the remainder of the story out in space. And also, I feel I should mention that this is it for Gun in the story. They are completely out now. We are just back to traditional Sonic vs. Eggman. But I do still like that Gun was there, making it feel like this had a little bit more stakes, and as I said, made the world feel a bit more alive. So Sonic and friends in the rocket make their way to the Ark, but they end up hitting a meteor on the way there, and knocking out all of the Master Emerald pieces that were being held in the cargo hold. Not exactly sure why they need to be held in the cargo hold, considering that everyone in this fucking universe can hold everything in hammer space, but whatever, it's fine. It's basically just a justification for Master Emerald pieces to be here out in space for Knuckles and Rouge to hunt for. Whatever, that works well enough. Knuckles' story is pointless, so that thing is also pointless, but it's not really that big of a deal, is it? Now we cut to Rouge, who's in the control center of the Ark, and Eggman's radioing her, telling her that, Sonic and friends managed to get past me, and they're on their way to the Ark. Turn on the defense systems, and she's like, you're a fucking idiot. Alright, what's the password so I can get into the control system and figure out the Ark? And of course, the password is, once again, Maria. However, Rouge has no intention of activating the Ark's defense systems. Instead, she uses the password to get into the Ark's computer so she can finally figure out what Project Shadow truly is, and if Shadow actually is the ultimate life form. And she learns something that is very surprising. Then she gets a reading of Sonic and friends arriving on the Ark, as well as a signature of Master Emerald pieces, and immediately, her jewel-hungry self starts going off, and she's like, ooh, Master Emerald pieces, don't mind if I do. Now, catching up with the good guys, Knuckles obviously has bailed to go hunt Master Emerald pieces because he has no involvement with the actual story of this game and doesn't need to be here. But Sonic and Tails formulate this plan of how they're going to take down the Eclipse Cannon and defeat Eggman. And also, for some reason, Amy is there. I have no idea why they decided to bring Amy along. Like, I assume that Amy, insisted that she come along, and that's fine for her character, but why the hell would Sonic agree to that? Why wouldn't he say, no, you stay here because it's dangerous? Like, Amy might feel like she's more capable now because of Sonic Adventure 1, but Sonic doesn't know that, and he doesn't give a fuck, really, so I don't really know why they're letting Amy tag along, but she is, so whatever. But going back to Sonic and Tails' plan, you see, Tails has managed to make a fake Chaos Emerald, and I'm just going to stop it right here because I have a big issue with this. Because this is once again another Shiro Maikawa character rewrite, because, previously, Tails was a tinkerer, he was a mechanic, he liked machines and vehicles, he knew how to build and repair and maintain things like that. But now he has gone from, tinkerer character to super genius. And this is a common thing that happens to lots of characters in lots of things, where you take a character's, like, one element that they are, particularly good at, and you just escalate that until they become the best fucking thing ever at that skill. It's something that really fucking annoys me with lots of stuff. Because before, like, Tails was able to build a plane, and now he's able to build this fucking transforming robot plane, and also he can manufacture artificial Chaos Emeralds that are not as exactly like Chaos Emeralds, but they're very similar in how they operate, and he even states that, they're so close to the real thing that a machine would never be able to tell the difference. Which, again, that's one of those things where it's, like, kind of not the best writing, where it's like, well, how the fuck do you know if a machine could tell the difference? What if it's a really sophisticated machine that can tell the difference? But that's meant to be like a thing for us as the audience, where it's establishing that nothing can tell the difference between this emerald and a normal one, even though logically there's no reason for Tails to be 100% certain that no machine could ever tell the difference. So yeah, now Tails is a super genius that can fucking build anything, and he makes a fake Chaos Emerald. And so the plan is that Sonic is going to shove this fake Chaos Emerald in the cannon with the rest of the Chaos Emeralds, and it is programmed to backfire and basically just use the power of the emeralds to explode instead of firing the cannon. So Sonic and Tails split up to get this plan underway, and Amy is left by herself, and she's very frustrated by that because they're basically just ignoring her. Because, after Sonic Adventure 1, she's like, I want to help too, I can be involved. And they're just like, whatever, you're just Amy, you can't do anything. So they just make a joke out of her. In a way, it kind of undermines her character arc from the last game. But, she's not playable in this game, so they were like, she can't really do anything too important, so it is what it is. Cutting back to Knuckles and Rouge, they have run into each other once again, and we return to their conflict from the beginning of the story. Give me the Master Emerald pieces, it's mine. No, you give them to me, it's mine. And the two fight, and it eventually results in them getting in another argument. And while distracted arguing, Rouge takes a step and she falls, but Knuckles manages to catch her and save her life. And then there's this little moment of sexual tension between the two, where it's like, oh, he saved my... what's happening here? But then Rouge gets all tsundere on Knuckles, and she's like, don't touch me, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And Knuckles, of course, not being good with girls, yells at her like, I just saved you, bitch, you should be grateful to me. And then she's just like, God, I fucking can't stand you. But then she ends up giving him her Master Emerald pieces back as thanks for saving her. And, there's this nice little moment where after Knuckles leaves, he's like, sorry that I attacked you. He sees that there's some good in her, and once Rouge is leaving, she also gives him a little bit of a look where, she's clearly like, maybe I'll fuck him. Again, I love the dynamic between these two characters. Like, they're bickering, leading into, like, a slight, like, sexual tension thing, but Knuckles being all rough and not really knowing how to act around girls. It's great. And I know a lot of people look at this scene and go, like, it's kind of stupid that Knuckles has to save Rouge from falling because she's a fucking bat and she can fly. But I think that fall is supposed to be, like, in slow motion. Knuckles, like, immediately grabs and catches her. So I don't really think it's that much of a problem. It's just that there really should have been a line in there where, like, once Rouge pulls her hand away and is like, don't touch me, and Knuckles is like, I just saved you. She should have been like, saved me? I could have saved myself. I can fly. I didn't need you. That would have just settled that without much issue. But, they just didn't put that line in there when they should have. Now we cut back to Eggman, who has realized that Rouge has not activated the Ark's defense systems, and Sonic and friends have managed to get aboard the Ark. And he notices that there are 2 readings of a Chaos Emerald, which doesn't make any sense because there's only 7 of them and they have 6. Of course, it's reading, both the real Chaos Emerald that Sonic has and the fake one that Tails made. And Eggman manages to figure out that they have a fake and are up to something, and so he's like, I'm gonna go up to the Ark and fucking deal with those 2 once and for all. And this is just a cool moment for Eggman where he makes his declaration of like, this is it, the final battle. This will decide things once and for all. I'm finally going to be rid of those 2 and conquer the world. And a lot of people really like Eggman in this game because he's so much more menacing and powerful feeling than he is in any other Sonic game. And really, that's a product of the fact that he was made playable in this game, because with him being playable, now he's not just, in the background up to something off-screen. Now we actually get to follow Eggman as he achieves his goals through his own hands, which, just makes him feel a lot more cool. Plus, it also means that Eggman finally gets to succeed to some degree, as now that we're playing as him, we accomplish goals with him, and he gets closer than he's ever gotten to actually defeating Sonic once and for all. And in this moment, he even has this nice thing where he talks to Shadow and says, like, if anything ever happens to me, you see this through to the end. Almost like an ultimatum, like Eggman thinks there's a chance he might die in this final battle. Like, this is some heavy shit. Like, this is treating it like this is the fucking finale of the Sonic series or something. Like I said, Shiro Maikawa was definitely trying to up the epicness with this game's story. So Eggman goes up to the Ark and he manages to capture Amy, who was just left on her own with Sonic and Tails, doing their thing. And just as Sonic reaches the core of the cannon and is about to put the fake Chaos Emerald in, he gets a call from Tails, who then eventually Eggman takes over and lets him know that he's captured both Amy and Tails, and if he ever wants to see them again, he's gonna have to come and bring the Chaos Emerald to him. So the plan has gone tits up at this point. Sonic shows up, and this is where we get the very epic moment of the showdown between Sonic and Eggman. Eggman has a gun pointed at Amy, just a full-on fucking pistol that he's holding in his hand, which is kind of fucking stupid considering he's in a goddamn robot with a bunch of guns on it, but whatever. And Eggman instructs Sonic to slowly step forward and, leave the emerald on the floor. But Sonic is thinking, you think you're so clever, Eggman, but I've got your number. You want the Chaos Emerald? Sure, you can take the fake Chaos Emerald and put it in the Eclipse cannon, and it'll blow it up. I'll manage to save Amy at the same time, so... You think you're smart, Eggman, but actually you're not.
そんな偽物に騙されると思うてか。そんなどうして偽物だって分かったんだ。たった今貴様が教えてくれたわ。貴様もろとも宇宙に放り出して爆破してくれるわ。あとは頼んだぜテイルス。それからエミ元気でな。さらばじゃ。ソニック・ザ・ヘッジホッグ。ソニック。所詮はただのハリネズミだ。さらばじゃ我が習性のライバルよ。ソニック。残りは貴様じゃ。最後のエメラルドおとなしく渡すなら見逃してやらんでもないぞ。あのソニックが初めて僕に頼むって言ってくれたんだ。だから絶対逃げ出したりするもんか。
Holy shit. Sonic fucking dies. That's it. Eggman's won. All he has to do now is defeat Tails and take the last Chaos Emerald. This is obviously a very cool scene. It's probably my favorite one in the game. It's just a really good clash of, Sonic and Eggman, longtime arch nemesises, and they finally clash in this way, and Eggman gets the upper hand on Sonic once and for all, and manages to take him out. In a way, that was actually pretty clever and set up in the story. However, I do need to rain on the parade a little bit, because there is a major plot hole going on in this scene, which is that Eggman was able to figure out that there was a fake Chaos Emerald because he got the reading that Sonic and friends had 2 Chaos Emeralds with them. Why exactly? Why did Sonic and Tails bring the real Chaos Emerald with them to the Ark? Why the fuck would you bring Eggman the Chaos Emerald that he needs to finish the Eclipse Cannon? They know that he's after Chaos Emeralds. Why wouldn't you just hide the real Chaos Emerald on Earth somewhere and then go after Eggman? It makes abso-fucking-lutely no sense. Like, it was just stupid. They just did that, and that gave Eggman the ability to figure out that they had 2 emeralds and, intuit that there was a fake one and call their bluff here. If they just brought 1 Chaos Emerald, their plan would have worked, but for some reason, they bring the real one. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But I'm willing to forgive it because the emotion of this moment works really well. Like, this is really what Sonic Adventure 2's story is about. Like, there are plot holes, there are issues, for sure. But moments like this is why this is so many people's favorite Sonic story. You know, Sonic thinking he's actually lost and he's going to die, and saying his final goodbyes to Tails and Amy. This is where the slight tone change for Adventure 2 really works. Like, this sort of epic thing, Tails feeling this conviction after Sonic's death and trying to fulfill his final wish of, you know, taking care of things. This is very cool, and it's a very nice expansion of Tails' character arc from Adventure 1. You know, in that game, he learned how to be independent and do things for himself, and he's been demonstrating that through this whole story. At the very beginning, his introduction, he's just going to Prison Island to save Sonic all by himself, and he's not nervous about it or worried or anything. He's like, of course I can do this. But now we go into this situation where he believes Sonic is dead, and he's like, I have to fulfill this promise to Sonic to defeat Eggman once and for all. It's just so cool. Like, these are the moments that really make Sonic Adventure 2's story. However, of course, as we all know, Sonic's not really going to die here.
も純度も本物にはかなわないけど、同じ波長と特性を持ってる。同じ波長と特性？できるか、俺に。
Now, I know a lot of people criticize the fact that Sonic is able to use Chaos Control here because he's never fucking done it in his life. How does he know how to do this? But, I mean, story-wise, I think this is relatively well-earned here because he's witnessed Shadow do Chaos Control, so he knows what it is. He knows that you're able to somehow manipulate the energy of Chaos Emeralds to do things like teleport and stuff like that. And he's in this dire situation where it's try Chaos Control or fucking die, so why not give it a shot? And yeah, Sonic only saw Shadow do Chaos Control, you know, the one time when they first encountered each other. But you gotta remember that Sonic has demonstrated that he is really worked up over Shadow in this game. So I think it's safe to assume that, like, while he was locked up on Prison Island, he was really thinking about that Chaos Control that Shadow did, and, like, how did he do that? Like, I imagine he was, like, working that out in his head of, like, huh, so you can do that, huh? And, you know, thinking about, like, I wonder if I can do that. And then in this situation, he's forced to try it. And he's motherfucking Sonic the Hedgehog. Of course he can do it. So he manages to pull it off and save his own life in the last moment. Like, this, I think, is very epic and very cool, and again, is relatively well set up in the story. The fact that he was able to do it with a fake Chaos Emerald that's not as powerful as a real one just goes to show that Sonic's not actually that outclassed by Shadow like it appeared at the beginning of the story, now doesn't it? By the way, I presented that scene from earlier of Sonic dying a little bit differently than how it actually does in the game, because in the actual moment in the cutscene, you do see Sonic, you know, grabbing the Chaos Emerald and thinking that he can try Chaos Control to get out of it. We just don't see him actually Chaos Control and escape, so, you know, it's left a little bit uncertain, but obviously we know that he managed to do it. And I actually think that was a mistake on their part. I think it would have been more effective if we didn't see that until after, so that way when we see the capsule blow up, we don't know what happened to Sonic and if he managed to escape. It would have made the emotional impact of Tails and Amy feeling distraught over his apparent death more powerful. So that was a bit of a mistake. That could have been done better. So managing to escape from that situation, Sonic's gotta hurry, because there's a chance that Eggman might be able to defeat Tails, get the Chaos Emerald, put it in the cannon, and fire it at the Earth and destroy everything. So Sonic's only hope at this point is to shove the fake Chaos Emerald into the barrel of the Eclipse cannon so it can absorb all the Chaos Emerald energy and blow the whole thing up. Now we cut over to Rouge, who is back at the Eclipse cannon's control panel, where, you know, she's not actually working for Eggman. She was just here to figure out about Project Shadow for the government. Now that she's done that, she's back to doing whatever she wants. So, hey, Chaos Emeralds are some fancy gems now, aren't they? So she figures, well, I'll just take these and make my leave. You know, it also probably has something to do with the fact that that will stop the fucking planet from being destroyed. But before she's able to take them, Shadow shows up. And he reveals that he now knows who Rouge truly is, actually being a government agent. In English, this is very confusing because of how it was dubbed, but Shadow didn't know that all along. He figures it out, basically off-screen. He did research to figure out who Rouge is. He didn't really trust her from the very beginning. And I'm fine with this, except for the fact that it kind of just comes out of nowhere. Like, you needed to set this up. All you needed was one moment where Shadow gives Rouge a suspicious look, and that would have been plenty to set this scene up. And, Rouge is being all sassy. She's like, hey, it's not nice to, do a background check on a pretty girl like me. And Shadow's like, psh, you're just an imposter. And Rouge is like, oh, am I? Who's the real imposter here? And she shows Shadow the information that she's managed to find on Project Shadow, the project to create the ultimate life form, and what she finds is that the shadow that's standing right in front of her is not exactly the shadow that is shown in the research files. So she's wondering, who is it exactly that's standing in front of her? Is this truly Shadow, the ultimate life form, the product of Project Shadow? Or is this someone else? Then Eggman interrupts with a call saying that someone is heading for the Eclipse Cannon's barrel, and he wants Shadow to go take care of him. But before he leaves, Rouge asks the question, does Shadow believe that he is truly the real Shadow? And Shadow is confident when he says, yes, I'm definitely the real Shadow, I know it, I have to be. But Rouge poses the possibility that what if all of Shadow's memories are fake? To which Shadow replies,
僕にとってはそれが全て。彼女、マリアの願いを叶える。ただそれだけだ。
He then leaves to go take care of the situation at the Eclipse Cannon's barrel. Which is, of course, Sonic. Sonic and Shadow run into each other one last time, and this time things are a little bit different. And I'm just gonna let this scene play out, because it's a very nice scene.
驚いたな。てっきりあの爆発で宇宙の塵にでもなったと思っていた。
あいにくしぶといのが取り柄でね。お前のおかげで助かったぜ。
それはカオスエメラルド。まさかそんなフェイクを使ってカオスコントロールを。どうやら似ているのは姿形だけでもないらしい。君は一体何者なんだ？
俺は俺さ。冒険好きのただのハリネズミ。ソニック・ザ・ヘッジホークさ。
なるほど。だが君の存在はもはや無視できなかった。君の冒険ごっこ、ここで終わりにしてもらおう。
It's very cool that we get to see how Sonic and Shadow's relationship has evolved. Now they have a bit of mutual respect for one another. That's all cool and stuff. Though, one thing I want to point out as a bit of a continuity error is that Shadow is able to use Chaos powers during this boss fight, even though he doesn't have a Chaos Emerald. Whoops. And while Sonic and Shadow are fighting, Tails manages to defeat Eggman, but the Eclipse Cannon is about to fire. However, we see that, as it turns out, Sonic managed to defeat Shadow and throw the emerald into the barrel of the cannon, destroying the Eclipse Cannon and saving the day. However, there's a little bit of, uncertainty about the timeline of things right there, because, Tails doesn't figure out that Sonic is alive until right before he stops the cannon from blowing up, right? But Shadow gets the warning from Eggman that someone is going towards the Eclipse Cannon, and in that call, Eggman says that he managed to get the 7th Chaos Emerald, which would mean that he got that warning after the fight with Tails, even though the fight with Tails ends almost at the exact same time that Sonic puts the emerald in the cannon. Whoops. Maikawa forgot what the fuck was going on in the story there. I mean, it's not 100% clear exactly which is canon between Tails or Eggman, which one of them wins the fight. If Eggman wins the fight, then I guess that makes more sense. He wins the fight, takes the emerald, calls Shadow, and then, Sonic beats him and puts the emerald in the cannon, and then that makes sense. But then that scene of, Sonic calling Tails and Amy on the radio doesn't really make sense. So, figure it out for yourself. Anyway, after Sonic stops the cannon, we cut back to Eggman, who... Wait. Stop right here. The Chaos Emeralds are in the Eclipse Cannon. Why? A lot of people probably don't even notice this kind of thing, but if you actually pay attention to the story, you will see a problem here. Because let me ask you, what was the last time that we saw the Chaos Emeralds in the Eclipse Cannon? It was when Rouge was about to take them and Shadow stopped her. But in this scene, Shadow has to leave to go take care of Sonic, leaving Rouge alone in the room with the Chaos Emeralds unguarded, where she can just take them as she was planning to do, but she doesn't for no reason. The justification here is supposed to be that Shadow threatens to kill her if she takes them, but considering the alternative is the entire Earth being destroyed, I feel like she would take them anyway and take the risk. But this was conveniently forgotten so that way the story could progress. This is what is so frustrating to me about the story of Sonic Adventure 2. There is good stuff here. There is genuinely really good things going on in this story, but there are so many issues as well that are just the product of sloppy-ass writing. I can forgive plot holes and stuff up to a point, but Jesus Christ, man, how many issues are there going to be? Spoilers, there's still more to come. But continuing, Eggman puts the 7th Chaos Emerald in the Eclipse Cannon, and something very weird is happening at the Eclipse Cannon's control console. He sees a video feed of Professor Gerald Robotnik. Everybody reconvenes back in this, central, observation deck or something, whatever you would call this room. And Rouge explains that she's received a transmission from the ground that apparently the Ark is now on a collision course towards the Earth. And Gerald Robotnik has a video feed similar to Eggman displayed all around the world, and he has something to say.
これは全人類に対する死刑宣告だ。私の計算に狂いがなければ27分53秒後アークは地上に衝突し、お前たちは世界ものとも消えてなくなるだろう。7つのカオスエメラルドが揃うとき、私はこの復讐計画がスタートするようにしておいた。プログラムはすでに不可逆だ。私から全てを奪った愚かしい人間どもよ、私と同じ絶望を味わうがいい。
他に残すべきメッセージはあるか？
ありません。
構え。
So yeah, Gerald's a little bit insane. And then Eggman comes into the room and, gives everybody the briefing that was Gerald Robotnik, his grandfather, and everyone's like, so this is your doing. And Eggman's like, nope, I had nothing to do with this. And there's this great interaction between Sonic and Eggman once Eggman realizes that Sonic is still alive.
説明してくれ。
お状況の悪いハリネズミめ。やはり生きておったのか。
あんなもんよりナッコールズの動かすシャトルの方がよっぽどスレナンだったぜ。
After some bantering, Eggman gives Rouge Gerald Robotnik's diary, which they then play on the console. So Gerald Robotnik was on the Ark and he was researching to create the ultimate life form, until eventually the research was determined to be dangerous or lost approval of the government or whatever. The circumstances of why they shut down his research aren't 100% clear. Maybe it's because someone saw a Satan alien monster floating around on the Ark. I don't know. That's a story for another time. But the point is, the government decides that they want to shut down Gerald, and not just shut him down, but shut down everything and everyone who knew about what was going on the Ark. So they have gun soldiers raid it and kill everybody aboard, including Maria, who was Gerald's granddaughter and obviously a very close friend of Shadow. While Maria was dying, she sent Shadow back down to the Earth in an escape capsule, where Gerald was eventually captured by Gun and sent to Prison Island. That was actually his cell that Sonic was in earlier in the story. That's what all that writing on the walls was. That was Gerald's insane scribbles as he was planning this whole thing. So when Shadow was freed and said that he would be loyal to Eggman, that was actually not true. He was just going along with Eggman, placating him in order to achieve his own goal and Gerald's goal, which was to collect the Chaos Emeralds to power the Eclipse Cannon and destroy the Earth, to take revenge on all of humanity for killing Maria, as her death drove Gerald to insanity and, of course, was Shadow's dearest friend taken from him. So that explains how Eggman even knew about Shadow in the first place. You know, he started going through his grandfather's diary and figured out, ooh, something about threatening the entire world or some such. That sounds good to me. Let me go check that out. Though I must say, there's one thing about Gerald's protocol here that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, first of all, there's the part where somehow he managed to make a recording of himself as he was about to get killed, because I assume Gunn figured out that he was working on this plan, so they decided to have him executed. And somehow he managed to, after his death, get this recording uploaded to the Ark, so that way it could get played all around the world to deliver his revenge. I mean, I guess he could have set that up in advance. Sure, I'll buy that, whatever. I find it a little bit harder to believe, though, that the gun soldiers that all had their guns pointed at him and were listening to him ramble about all this stuff were just like, whatever, you know, he's just crazy. Let's not look into this at all and see if that's the case. Like, if I was fucking Gunn and I saw this fucking recording, or, you know, my soldiers told me that Gerald said this, I'd be like, okay, blow up the Ark. Don't want this shit to fucking happen one day. But, you know, for plot convenience, so we can actually have this story, they don't do that for no reason. But that's not my issue. My issue is with the fact that Gerald's protocol is to have the Ark crash into the Earth. Why would that be the protocol of what happens when you put all 7 Chaos Emeralds in the Ark? Wouldn't the more logical thing to do to just make it automatically fire at the eclipse cannon and blow up the Earth that way? Like, why does it need to be like an impact thing? The only reason to make it that the Ark would impact the Earth is so that way we can have this new final conflict at the end of the story now that the eclipse cannon has been destroyed. How the fuck would he know that 50 years from now a blue hedgehog would blow up the eclipse cannon? Like, why would he make that assumption unless this is just like the backup plan and it would have shot at the Earth if the cannon was still ready to fire? But if that was the case, did he, like, record multiple videos where, like, instead he's like, I'll get all of humanity with my vengeance by destroying the Earth by firing the eclipse cannon at it? Like, was he, like, at the soldiers where they're like, do you have any final words? And he was like, all right, so I did my take about, you know, having fired the cannon. I need another take real quick about it crashing into the Earth. Just give me a second here. And apparently the soldiers were okay with letting him record these different takes and, you know, programming it so that way, you know, the right one would play in the right circumstance. I mean, obviously, I'm just joking. More realistically, maybe he just assumed that this is the safer bet because there's a chance that the eclipse cannon might get destroyed, but the Ark would still be there, I guess. But I do find it to be exceptionally convenient that he made that assumption based on nothing. Anyway, back to our characters. Everybody puts their heads together and figures out how they might be able to stop the Ark from crashing into the Earth, because its propulsion is being powered by the Chaos Emeralds, and Knuckles is here, so he can use the Master Emerald to nullify the Chaos Emeralds and make them stop. And through the power of lazy writing, we learn that Knuckles can shrink down the Master Emerald so he can carry it around. How convenient for our current situation. It's almost like that was BS'd on the spot so we could make this story work. So look at that, Knuckles actually does have a purpose to be here, except not really, because that is just a contrived way to force Knuckles to have something to do, because he's a character in this story. You could just as easily say that we just need to remove the Chaos Emeralds from the console and that will stop them, and it would have the exact same effect in the story. So you could literally remove Knuckles completely from this story and it would not affect the main plot at all. I mean, I like his story in terms of the clash with Rouge and stuff like that, but as far as contributing to the main story, he literally is pointless. But whatever, so everybody decides to work together, even Eggman, because, you know, this is gonna fucking destroy the entire planet and everybody is going to die, so they're like, let's all work together and save the day. Yeah, and everybody loves that kind of shit, right? The good guys and the bad guys teaming up to stop a greater threat. However, I have another major issue with this because of Shiro Maekawa's classic sloppy writing. Why does Eggman want to save the world exactly? Because Eggman has joined the party on the whole, oh no, Gerald is going to destroy the Earth. We have to save the planet. You know, we have to stop him. But Eggman literally 5 minutes ago was trying to do the exact same thing. In fact, if it wasn't for Sonic, he would have succeeded and blown up the Earth. So it's okay for Eggman to try to blow up the Earth, but if Gerald's gonna do it, hey, that's not cool, dude. You're gonna fucking destroy the Earth. Everyone's gonna die. You can't do that. Like, either Eggman is the biggest fucking hypocrite in the world here, or this is just poorly written. I mean, you can make the argument that Eggman himself doesn't want to die because he's on the Ark and it's going to crash into the planet. But, I mean, what was his fucking plan when the cannon fired at the Earth if it went smoothly? Like, it would have destroyed the fucking planet, and then he'd be stuck on the Ark until it eventually ran out of resources and he died. What a genius. What a plan. I mean, like, I know it's part of Eggman's character for him to not really think things through that far ahead, but this is stretching it quite a bit for me. Also, another detail that's kind of missing here is that the Chaos Emeralds are automatically moved from the cannon's control area to the core of the Space Colony Ark, which really should have been stated more explicitly. You only get this one shot of the map to kind of figure it out. So everybody is working together to reach the core of the Eclipse cannon and, you know, stop the Chaos Emeralds and save the day. Except for two people who are not getting involved. One is Amy, because of course everybody is ignoring her and not taking her seriously in this story because she's just Amy. What can she do? But she's like, I want to help, I want to do something. And they're like, yeah, okay, Amy, whatever you say. And of course Shadow, because this was his plan after all, why would he help them stop it? So now basically he's just waiting for death. Remember in Sonic the Fighters when Bean the Dynamite threw fucking bombs at people like it was a goddamn Warner Brothers cartoon? Yeah, quite a tonal shift here with Shiro Maikawa's writing, isn't it? Anyway, Amy sees Shadow there, and she thinks, well, if I can't help everyone, you know, physically actually get to the core and stuff, the least I can do to help out is get Shadow to try to help them. So she tries to appeal to Shadow. She tries to, you know, make him see the light and make him want to help others. And so we get this nice little scene between the two. Amy pleads to Shadow to help everyone save the Earth, and Shadow's like, why the fuck would I do that? I just got Maria her revenge. But Amy tells him what is essentially the theme of the story, which is that while humans can be awful and do awful things to each other, commit atrocities, they're very self-centered, they hurt each other, humans do lots of awful things all the time. At the end of the day, she believes that humanity at its core is good. People deserve to live, because that's all that people are trying to do, is live and try to, you know, be happy, live another day and go on with their lives. Despite all the awful that there is in the world, there is also good, and humanity does deserve to live. And Amy saying this, you know, a sweet, innocent, normal girl saying these kinds of things, it reminds Shadow of something that he has forgotten.
その可能性を奪わないで。シャドウ、私の代わりにいつか必ずあの星に住むすべての人たちに幸せになるチャンスを与えてあげて、みんなの願いを叶えてあげて。シャドウならそれができる。きっとあなたはそのために生まれたの。アディオス、シャドウ・ザ・ヘッジホ
そう
ーク。
マリア、彼女が本当に望んでいたもの。
シャドウ
Can I just say how much better the story of Sonic Adventure 2 is than Adventure 1? Like, Adventure 1 had some parts that were kind of good and kind of worked, but this is so much more effective. By being one focused story, we actually get this really nice character arc for Shadow. The whole story has revolved around him and, you know, what's going on with Maria in the past. You know, there's allusions to Shadow wanting to fulfill Maria's promise of getting revenge. And, you know, you can kind of figure out that Shadow thinks that the wish that Maria asked for Shadow before she sent him through the escape pod was for him to get revenge on humanity for killing her. But actually, Shadow has remembered what her real wish actually was. Maria is basically the polar opposite of Gerald. You know, Gerald has lost his mind and gone crazy due to the death of Maria, and he believes that humanity is awful for this atrocity they've committed, and it demonstrates that humanity is a horrible thing that does not deserve to exist, so he wants to kill them all. However, Maria, despite being shot and bleeding to death, still pleads with Shadow to do good for humanity and try to help them. The reason that Shadow thinks that Maria wants revenge is because Gerald has altered his memory and either blocked out that part where Maria said that or explicitly changed his memory to make it so that she wants revenge. And it's also very nice in this moment where Shadow realizes what her true wish was, but that also she is granting Shadow's wish in that way. She is giving Shadow a purpose. Because remember that scene from before? Shadow is wondering, what is his purpose? He doesn't have one. He doesn't know what his purpose is. So Maria, because she's dying, she gives her purpose to him. She wants to help people. She wants to do good for the world. And so she asks Shadow to do that for her, now giving him a meaning for his life. And so now, of course, Shadow goes to help the others. And while this is a great scene in many ways, I actually do have a bit of an issue with it. Shadow's arc here, his turn of heart from villain to hero, is not of his own doing or not of his own choice. He doesn't actually make a change of character. All that happens is that he remembers what Maria's true wish actually was. The only reason he was trying to destroy the Earth was because Gerald had altered his memory. So Shadow doesn't really have a true character arc where he realizes what he's been doing is wrong. He just remembers what Maria wanted. You know, the only reason he was trying to kill everyone was because he thought that was what Maria wanted. And it's just, oh, that's what she wanted. Okay, let me just completely change course. Like, there's no implication that Shadow is really, like, brainwashed by Gerald. It seems like his memory was just altered. Meaning that while Shadow is being a hero now, it's entirely within his character to fucking kill everybody if that's what Maria asks for. So Shadow just ends up coming off as this character that just has no sense of self-worth or choice or anything. He'll just do whatever the fuck Maria wants. If he fucking remembered what Maria's true wish was, and it was like, Shadow, please, in my stead, I would like you to become the best manager at a fast food restaurant that there ever was, then at this moment, Shadow would be like, sorry, Amy, I gotta go. I can't help everyone save the world. I gotta go apply to McDonald's. Because, you know, that was Maria's wish, and I'll just do whatever the fuck she wants me to do because I have no agency of my own. It's a thing that I don't really like, you know, the fact that Shadow's memory was altered. In my opinion, this would be more effective if Shadow was just blinded by his own rage of Maria being killed, and so he was kind of ignoring or suppressing the memory of her actual wish and convinced himself that her wish was for him to kill everybody. Then that moment with Amy could be a moment where he remembers what her wish was and realizes that this is not what Maria would have wanted. I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong, and that would have been much more effective. The way it is, I don't know about it, but I actually do think it works in another way, but we're going to have to talk about that a little bit later. So Sonic and Knuckles manage to make it to the core of the arc, but standing in their way to stop them is a giant fucking lizard monster who Knuckles claims is the prototype of the ultimate life form. We can see a picture of it in the research that Rouge managed to get about Project Shadow. While we're talking about the prototype, geez, talk about a change in direction for the project. Fucking, we go from a giant goddamn lizard monster to a small cartoon hedgehog. Someone really had a different idea partway through this research. Jokes aside, I do like this moment quite a bit of Shadow taking on the prototype of the ultimate life form, you know, with him being the final version, because it's not just a thing of Shadow fighting, you know, another version of, you know, the ultimate life form, but there's a degree of, like, Shadow earning his place as the real Shadow, because earlier, you know, Rouge was questioning, are you the real Shadow, or is, you know, this thing the real Shadow? This is what was being worked on according to the Project Shadow research, so is Shadow actually the ultimate life form or not? And this is a chance for him to prove himself that he is indeed the true ultimate life form by, you know, beating the fake. And, you know, that's kind of a big thing in Sonic Adventure 2 in general. Fakes. You have Sonic and Shadow, you know, Shadow kind of being a fake Sonic. You got the fake Chaos Emerald, and now you have this fake encounter here. There's definitely a very clear intentional thematic element of, you know, the fake thing versus the real thing. An interesting thing in the Japanese version of the story is that when Shadow refers to himself as the ultimate life form, multiple times he specifically says that he is the one and only ultimate life form in existence, and there's really no reason for him to say something like that to other characters. So to me, it really comes across as like him trying to convince himself that he is Shadow, the ultimate life form, the only ultimate life form, the only Shadow. So this kind of works as Shadow's chance to test for himself if he really is truly Shadow. And this also kind of works to be a thematic conflict between Gerald and Maria. You know, Shadow is fighting for Maria, and the prototype is fighting for Gerald. He wants to destroy all of humanity, thinking they don't deserve to live, but Maria doesn't see it that way. She wants humanity to live and be happy, and so Shadow is fighting for her. So this isn't just a conflict of Shadow and his prototype. This is a conflict of Gerald going crazy and Maria and her pure heart. It's very nice and well done, actually. So while Shadow is fighting the Bio Lizard, Sonic and Knuckles get up to the altar of the Master Emerald, which is a bit curious that there is a replica of the Master Emerald altar from Sonic Adventure 1 here at the core of the Ark. Perhaps there's a bit of a reason for that we'll talk about later. But Knuckles uses the Master Emerald to stop the Chaos Emeralds, preventing the descent of the Ark into the Earth. But then the Bio Lizard manages to do Chaos Control. After all, he is the ultimate life form prototype, so if Shadow can do it, it's sensible that the prototype can also do it to a degree, and fuse itself with the Ark itself. So now that the Chaos Emeralds are no longer propelling the Ark, the prototype is doing it with its own life. So now the only way to stop the Ark would be to kill the prototype out in space. And how are they going to do that? Well, Sonic and Shadow are here, and the 7 Chaos Emeralds are here, so I think you kind of know how this goes. Super Sonic and Super Shadow managed to defeat the Bio Lizard, and all that's left now is to stop the Ark's plummet into the Earth, which they managed to do with their Super Chaos Control powers, putting it back in its safe orbit. However, Shadow is not able to make it, and he plummets down into the Earth. And now we need to talk about Shadow, because a lot of people sometimes ask the question, why does Shadow die here? What happened? Why doesn't Sonic die? And there is a reason for it, a very good reason, but it takes a lot of explaining. So let's talk about Gerald and his research on the Ark. Because he wasn't just working on Project Shadow, obviously he was also working on things like the Eclipse Cannon, but he was working on other things as well. You can tell just by playing the game that he must have been doing a fair amount of study of the ancient Echidna civilization from long ago, because you can see enemies that are artificial chaos, you know, some sort of machine artificial being meant to replicate chaos in some way, so he knew what chaos was. And also the fact that the core of the Ark resembles the Lost World from Sonic Adventure 1 so much, like that water slide part is nearly one for one, and of course it has the altar of the Master Emerald there. So Gerald was clearly doing research on the ancient Echidna civilization, and if he was doing research on them, then it's possible that he also may have come across this depiction from Sonic 3 and Knuckles that showed the prophecy of Super Sonic defeating Eggman, and it's very heavily alluded to that this was the inspiration for Shadow the Hedgehog. But let's rewind a little bit more and ask ourselves the question, what even is Project Shadow? It's to create the ultimate life form. What the fuck even is that? Well, remember back at the beginning when I said that there's a lot of important story details that are not actually in the game? This is what I was talking about. There is a lot of really critical details that were completely left out of the actual story of Sonic Adventure 2, and were only told in, like, the official walkthrough and shit like that. I don't know why the fuck you wouldn't put this in the story, but for some reason it wasn't. So, what Project Shadow was it was the government attempting to achieve immortality. And they wanted Gerald, as the world's greatest scientific researcher, to lead the project. However, he had no interest in researching that sort of thing. However, he did eventually join the project because of Maria, because Maria suffers from a terminal illness. And he thought that maybe, in researching immortality, he might be able to find a way to cure her sickness. So he eventually decided to join Project Shadow and begin researching how to make an immortal being. And that's what the Bio Lizard was. It was an attempt to create an immortal creature of some kind. But it did not go well with the Bio Lizard, as it is very, very unstable, uncontrollable, and its life is very, very fragile. It has a life support system that is constantly keeping it alive because it just cannot function on its own. So that didn't exactly work, and Gerald eventually started to do research on the ancient Echidna civilization. And presumably, while doing his research, when he came across the prophecies of Super Sonic, he must have gotten the idea that this is it. The ultimate life form, a being of ultimate power that is immortal. if I am able to recreate this ultimate life form, I could save Maria. And so that's how the research on creating Shadow begins. It was an attempt to recreate Sonic, the prophesized being that was in the depictions of the ancient Echidna tribes. This is why Shadow is an anthropomorphic hedgehog, and I suspect this is also why Shadow is super fast, because likely in the prophecies it would say that Sonic is a super fast hedgehog, so he's like, okay, I need that. I need a being that is super fast. And I actually think that's the reason that Shadow has the rocket shoes. I mean, I think a part of it was that they just wanted Sonic's rival to, run in a unique, different way than Sonic, so we'll give him the skating animation, and that would be cool. But I also think it might be a bit of foreshadowing to show that while Gerald was able to create something similar to the ultimate life form, aka Sonic the Hedgehog, he wasn't able to quite get there, and maybe Shadow isn't quite as fast as Sonic is, so he needs the rocket shoes to achieve the speed of the ultimate life form that he's supposed to be. This kind of idea is backed up in the final fight because Shadow mentions in his super form that his body is failing on him and he can't maintain the super form much longer, and he even says something to Sonic where he's starting to wonder if Sonic is actually the ultimate life form and not him. So it's very, very likely that Shadow was an attempt to essentially create an artificial Sonic. That is the reason that Sonic was able to do Chaos Control, because Shadow can do Chaos Control because he's supposed to be the ultimate life form, and that's one of the things that the prophesized ultimate life form can do. It can manipulate the power of the Chaos Emeralds and, turn into a super form. So Gerald gave Shadow that ability, through his research and stuff. He managed to figure out how to make a being that can manipulate chaos energy. That's actually something he figured out with the Bio-Lizard. The life support system that keeps the Bio-Lizard alive is feeding him chaos energy. The same chaos energy that's used to power Gun's robots, actually. So Shadow is able to manipulate the Chaos Emeralds and do Chaos Control. And if Shadow is a copy of Sonic, then if Shadow can do it, Sonic can also do it. So to me, that perfectly explains why Sonic was able to do Chaos Control, in the escape pod when he had never done it before, because technically, Chaos Control is Sonic's ability, not Shadow's. Shadow can only do it because he's supposed to be a copy of Sonic, so he was given an ability that Sonic has. Sonic just learned about Chaos Control through Shadow, and so technically that means that the original is copying the copy. Which is honestly really interesting, the fact that Shadow is a copy of a prophecy of someone that did not exist yet, because Shadow was created 50 years ago. So in a way, Shadow is a copy, but also in a way, Shadow is the original. So between Sonic and Shadow, that banter of them accusing each other of being imposters and fakes and stuff, it actually makes a lot of sense, because Sonic is the original in the sense that he is the one that is prophesized that Shadow is based off of, but Shadow came first, so who's really the original Sonic? And this is what I was talking about before, about the parallels and the attempts at, thematically fake versus real that's in the story. At the very beginning, Shadow and Sonic are both able to defeat that same gun robot because they are the same. They are copies of each other. Anything one of them can do, the other can do as well. And even the fact that Sonic was able to use the fake Chaos Emerald to Chaos Control thematically also works, because you have the real Sonic using a fake Chaos Emerald, just like the fake Sonic was able to use a real Chaos Emerald to do Chaos Control. So that is why everyone says Sonic and Shadow look the same. It's not just because, a government cover-up about, the raid that happened 50 years ago on the Ark or anything like that. It's supposed to be because thematically in the story, Sonic and Shadow are the same. They have the same abilities and the same appearance, even though they don't literally look the same. Story-wise, they're supposed to be the same. But at the end of the day, you just can't make Sonic the Hedgehog artificially through science, and so Shadow isn't quite what Sonic is, which is why Sonic is able to defeat him at the end of the story once Sonic learns Chaos Control and they're now even again. And it is also why Shadow's body is not able to handle a super form, and why he dies at the end of the story. Another thing that shows this is the parallel between Sonic and Shadow in the escape pods. 50 years ago, Shadow was sent into the escape pod by Maria, and he wasn't able to save her. Meanwhile, Sonic, when he was put in the escape pod, he was able to get out of there and save everybody. It's a moment to show the difference between Sonic and Shadow, where while Shadow was helpless in that situation, Sonic was able to find a way out, because Sonic is the true ultimate life form. The fake Chaos Emerald itself is a metaphor for Shadow, something made artificially to be very similar to something incredible, and it's very, very similar, and you can't really tell the difference, but it's not quite as powerful as the real thing. There is a shocking amount of layers to Shadow's character. It's very surprising, especially for Sonic the Hedgehog, to have a character with so much depth to him. Shadow is definitely by far the most fleshed out Sonic character that has ever existed. He's got so much going on here. I know Shadow has the reputation of being an edgelord and stuff like that because of how he behaves in this game, you know, at the beginning parts when he's just evil and stuff, and of course Shadow the Hedgehog in later games like that. But actually, in this game, the true Shadow, the one that's not overcome with a feeling of revenge for Maria, he's not quite like that. Shadow is kind of like a pure soul, like a being that is totally uncorrupted from the horrors of humanity. There's actually a piece of characterization for Shadow that is lost in translation. In Japanese writing, it's common to have characters speak in a certain way to try to convey things about their personality. For example, there are different pronouns used for oneself. When you say I or me, there's different words for that can mean different things in Japanese fiction. Guys will typically use ore as their pronoun, and girls will typically use watashi. And Shadow's pronoun that he uses for himself is boku, which is typically used for young boys, children, who, as they get older, will change to ore. But when you have an older character still use boku, it usually is meant to imply that the character has like a childlike mind or an innocence to them. And so that's what this is trying to get across, is that Shadow is uncorrupt, he is pure, just like Maria. And Gerald tries to put that corruption onto him through, you know, what he feels because of Maria's death. And so Shadow ends up becoming the tool that Gerald uses to fulfill his vengeance, when Shadow doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want that for the world. And so Shadow ends up being a tragic character, actually, who ends up having to sacrifice himself to correct the mistakes that he was forced to make because of the corruption of somebody else, putting their own grief on top of him. In a way, it almost has like a bit of like a savior metaphor going on there with Shadow. He literally died for the sins of humanity because humanity killed Maria. Because Maria is kind of portrayed as this very like angelic, totally pure, all that is good type character. And so the fact that humanity chose to kill her, that is their sin that they must be punished for. But Shadow takes that sin upon himself, and he sacrifices himself to save everyone else. So it's kind of like almost got like a Shadow is Jesus kind of vibe going on a little bit. I mean, even the fucking final shot of the game is that, and it's like, there's a real, like, Shadow died to save all of us kind of vibe going on there, which is very ambitious storytelling for this fucking video game about a cartoon hedgehog defeating a man in the shape of an egg. But what if I told you there was actually even more going on here than just that? There is another layer to this story of Shadow that a lot of people seem to miss that I think makes the story of SA2 even better than what people think it is. Because there's another important detail of the story that was not actually put in the story and was relegated to like a manual or some crap. Which is that after Shadow was launched from the escape capsule from the Ark, you know, what happened to him? Obviously, he landed on Earth and, you know, Gunn apprehended him and brought him to Prison Island, where Gerald, you know, tweaked his memory and set him up to, you know, do all of this stuff in this game. Or is that what happened? Because a detail that's left out of the game itself is that that escape capsule that Shadow went on was never recovered. We don't know what happened to it. So that being the case, it introduces the possibility that this Shadow, the Shadow that we've been following throughout this entire story, may not be the same Shadow that existed 50 years ago. This is the reason that Rouge is working for the president to research Project Shadow, because why would they want to know whether or not Shadow is the real ultimate life form or not? What difference does it make? He's the only one that's here. The prototype is stuck on the Ark. Well, it's possible that this Shadow is not the original Shadow, but a recreation that Gerald made on Prison Island. This is why earlier Rouge proposes this idea to Shadow that his memories may be fake. Is it actually the case that Gerald altered Shadow's memory to make him think Maria wanted him to take revenge for everyone? Or is it possible that instead he recreated a new Shadow because the old Shadow died, and he implanted the memories of the old Shadow into the new one? Because if that was the case, that would mean that this Shadow, all of his memories are fake, and he doesn't actually know Maria, he didn't actually live aboard the Ark. He has no reason to actually want to fulfill Maria's wish. It has nothing to do with him. He may not be the true Shadow the Hedgehog. In fact, it's possible that all of his memories are fabricated, and his relationship with Maria isn't real at all. We don't know. There's no way to really know for sure. Remember that fight between Shadow and the Bio-Lizard, where you could interpret it as Shadow trying to prove to himself that he is the real Shadow? Well, that isn't just about him proving it versus the prototype. It's also about him just proving it to himself in general. And when Shadow is presented with this dilemma by Rouge, he responds with that he doesn't care if his memories are real or not. He's going to fulfill Maria's wish. But that was before he realized that his memories were altered. Once he remembers Maria's true wish, it's not simply that he changes course and decides, I'm going to save the world like Maria wanted. There's another layer here that is actually absent from the game, but if we look at Sonic X, we can find something that was probably cut from the original game script. Because Sonic X, the adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2 that it did, while it introduced a lot of new stuff into the story, another thing that it did is it reintroduced many cut lines of dialogue that were not put into the game back into the story. For example, when Sonic and Shadow first encounter each other, when Shadow leaves, he says, "Adios, Sonic the Hedgehog," which works very well as a setup for the ending of the game, which we'll get to. And at the end of the story, when Sonic and Shadow are confronting the falling Ark, this happens in Sonic X.
Shadow. みんなの願いを叶えてあげて。
僕はシャドウ。シャドウ・ザ・ヘッジホッグだ。
Shadow exclaims that he is Shadow the Hedgehog. Now, that might seem at first like a very minor detail. It doesn't really matter whether that's in the story or not. But I think that actually is a declaration by Shadow, where he's, thinking about his memories and whether or not they're real, whether or not he actually is Shadow, whether or not Maria was actually his friend, and whether or not he knew Maria at all, whether this was actually her wish, whether or not any of his memories are real. And at this moment, he chooses that it doesn't matter. Whether he's the original Shadow or a fake, a second Shadow that was made, once again, back to that thematic real versus fake thing, he is choosing to be Shadow the Hedgehog, to be the Shadow that exists in his memories, the one that Maria believed in. Whether or not that Maria even existed, whether or not that Maria believed in any Shadow, it doesn't matter. Shadow is choosing to buy into those memories and become this Shadow the Hedgehog that he remembers. Now, whether or not this was cut from the original game script is uncertain, but I highly suspect that it was, because of how well it works thematically with the setups earlier in the game with Rouge asking him if he's the real Shadow, and at the ending, Rouge asks Sonic if he thinks that Shadow really was just a tool created by Gerald, made to fulfill his revenge, and Sonic has this to say.
やつはやつさ。命をかけてあの星を守ったハリネズミ、シャドウ・ザ・ヘッジホッグさ。
I interpret that as Sonic respecting Shadow's choice to be Shadow the Hedgehog. Whether or not he's the real thing, whether or not his memories are fake, it doesn't matter. Just now, that Shadow did exist, and he gave his life to save everyone. And at the end of the story, we also get these nice moments with the other sets of rivals where Tails and Eggman have a little moment together, Knuckles and Rouge have a little moment together, and Sonic alone is thinking about what Shadow said, created to be the ultimate life form, kind of alluding to the idea that Sonic figured it out, that he's the ultimate life form, and Shadow was created to be a copy of him. But Sonic's thoughts are cut short once Amy comes in, and, Sonic's like, alright, enough of that. Everybody, let's go home. And we end on this final goodbye from Sonic.
Adios, Shadow the Hedgehog.
This story is really the main reason people love Sonic Adventure 2. Like, in my opinion, the story carries the game hard, far more than the gameplay. This is definitely the best story in the Sonic series up to this point. Like, nothing else even comes remotely close. However, Sonic fans, would it be okay if we stop treating this like the greatest story ever told in all of human history? Because it's not. While thematically there are a lot of cool things here, you know, Shadow's character and all of his layers is awesome. There are lots of cool moments where the characters are put in extreme situations that really test them. You know, there's a lot of really, really genuinely great things here, for sure. But don't forget all of the issues that I had to point out throughout this video. There's pacing issues, there's missing story details, Knuckles is entirely pointless, the entire middle of the story could basically not be there and it wouldn't make a difference. There are so many plot holes and things that don't make sense, retcons, characters doing stupid things that only exist for the story to continue, multiple plot contrivances and things that you just have to hand-wave because they don't really work at all. One of the main themes of the story not actually being in the game. And don't forget that normally this story is presented to the audience split up as two separate stories that you have to try to weave together in your head to figure out what the hell is going on. So while there are a lot of things about this story that are really good, there are also a lot of things about it that are very bad. And you have to consider that when you talk about whether or not this story is good, because a story is only one part of the equation. How you tell it is just as important. And I would argue that Sonic Adventure 2 does a relatively poor job of telling a very good story. But even then, like, it's good. It's really good and all. But, I mean, there are a lot of games out there with much better stories than Sonic Adventure 2. Not to mention, you know, things like shows and movies and books and comics and, you know, every other medium that you can tell a story in. Sonic Adventure 2 is not like some almighty masterpiece. There is plenty of shit that puts this thing to shame as far as telling quality stories with good themes and messages that have depth to the characters and stuff. There's plenty of better shit out there. While this might be one of the best Sonic stories ever, it's just a story. A good story, but it's just a story. Let's stop pretending like it's something it's not. Though, another thing I want to talk about is the tonal shift for this game, because I've pointed out many times throughout this video that there's a lot of stuff here that I don't think necessarily fits with the Sonic series as it existed in all of the previous games. Like, the Sonic series was a lot more lighthearted and straightforward, and even Sonic Adventure, while it was trying to do more with its story, this is doing way, way more than that. Like, this goes off the deep end. And in a way, I can see why they wanted to do that, because, like, I almost look at the Sonic series like this. Think of the original 2D games as like a show, like Sonic 1, 2, CD, and 3, and Knuckles. That's 4 seasons of a show, and then Sonic Adventure would be Season 5, where we wrap up the story that's being told throughout the entirety of the show, and then it's over. But then after the show, we have the movie, and that's Sonic Adventure 2, one last final big epic story to conclude the series and send it off once and for all. That's kind of the vibe I get from Sonic Adventure 2. It has this feeling of finality to it, where you could almost end the Sonic series right here, and that would be perfectly fine. And in that sense, I'm mostly okay with the tonal change, you know, if you look at this as like we are escalating for the last hurrah. But the fact of the matter is, this is not the final Sonic game, obviously, and when they were making it, they knew this wouldn't be the final Sonic game. Yeah, Sega was having financial trouble at the time, but even if Sega went under, they would have just sold the rights to Sonic to someone else, and they would have continued. So this was never going to be the conclusion of the Sonic series. And so that being the case, I almost have to wonder if this whole Sonic Adventure thing was actually the right direction to push the series into. Because, you know, all the 2D Sonic games were very light on story. They were just fun, really good platformers that people enjoyed. And then you come to these games and you're bombarded with tons of cutscenes and all this drama and all this crazy shit happening. And while not necessarily bad, it also isn't necessarily what people are looking for when they come to Sonic the Hedgehog. Many people have made the comparison that like classic Sonic is like Dragon Ball, and then SA2 in particular is it like transitioning to Dragon Ball Z. But the thing about that is that with the transition to Dragon Ball Z, we also get rid of Dragon Ball. Like the classic version of Sonic, the more simple version of Sonic, kind of goes away for a while thanks to this game in many of the following games. For many future Sonic games, we are going to continue to push in this more story-focused direction with, darker themes and more ambition and, this different kind of tone and slightly different characterization and stuff. And in a way, it almost kind of feels like this newer version of Sonic, the Sonic Adventure version of the series, kind of hijacked the Sonic franchise from the original version of Sonic, basically aping off of its success to do its own thing, and almost forgets about what Sonic was originally supposed to be. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but that original theme of Sonic of environmentalism is basically entirely absent here. Of course, it's normal for a series to evolve and change over time. I'm just questioning whether or not the choices that they made about how to change the series were truly for the better. Like, you can look back now and say, well, of course it was, because Sonic Adventure 2 has a great story, but just because something is good doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, if that makes sense. Going in this direction with the Sonic series also means that we don't go down many other directions that we could have gone, and perhaps one of those other directions could have ended up being even better than what we got. Just something that came to mind while I've been examining all these different Sonic games. One last thing I want to touch on is, have you ever noticed that, like, the premise of this game structurally is almost identical to Sonic Adventure 1? Think about it. How does the story go? Eggman learns about some ancient, powerful being that was sealed away long ago, and he releases it from captivity. He teams up with this thing to collect the Chaos Emeralds, and this creature eventually ends up betraying him and threatening the entire world, and it's all because of something that happened long ago, where this being formed a bond with an innocent and kind girl, but due to a tragedy that hurt this girl caused by the cruelness of the people of the time, the being now takes its retribution against everyone until it eventually realizes the error of its ways. Very, very similar, almost to the point where it makes me wonder if Shiro Maekawa just, like, took the same plot structure from SA1 and used that as, like, the skeleton to write Sonic Adventure 2 around. So that's it. That's Sonic Adventure 2, the big one, everyone's favorite Sonic story. This video was an absolutely colossal amount of work to make. I really did my best to have as thorough of a breakdown of this game's story as I possibly could. So I hope I managed to achieve that. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.